Hello there everybody, how's it going? I know at this time you're probably still playing Starfield, but that's good because Starfield is exactly what I want to talk about. Because in my playing Starfield and thinking about Starfield and examining Starfield, I can't help but to compare it to similar games, whether that be Bethesda's very own Skyrim or Obsidian's The Outer Worlds, but more so than any other, I find myself comparing Starfield to Cyberpunk 2077. Because here's the thing. I played Cyberpunk 2077 back when it came out 3 years ago, bugs and all. But I had a great time with it and could see through the bugs that this was a fantastic game. But I don't think anyone had to look past the bugs. That's just something I did and do with games. I'm usually pretty forgiving of bugs. Having said that, it's totally fair if you played Cyberpunk at launch and felt that the amount of game-breaking bugs and crashes was inexcusable, because it was. And I might not have made this video back in 2020, yet now, in 2023, with Cyberpunk DLC right around the corner, I decided to replay the base game, and I did just weeks before Starfield. And so now, coming off of Starfield, both games are very fresh in my mind. And when I replayed Cyberpunk with it now having all those game-breaking bugs removed and myriad updates, I had an even better time with the game that I already would have rated very highly, albeit with an asterisk next to that rating. And like I said, in 2020, I probably wouldn't have made this video even if both games were available, but in 2023 I can safely remove the asterisk next to Cyberpunk's rating and we can fairly compare it and Starfield without caveats. And I won't jerk you around here, I'll be blunt. I think Cyberpunk is a better game, and not by a little bit. And listen, I've never thought Cyberpunk was a perfect game. With bugs, without bugs, it was never a 10 out of 10 game to me, it still isn't. In my brain, it's always been a 9 out of 10 game. An outstanding game that was still very clearly missing something. And what's funny is, some of those things that Cyberpunk is missing, Starfield has. It's just that when you take the base and foundation of what they both are, and what they both have and have to have, Cyberpunk does it better in my opinion. And before you go thinking I'm some CD Projekt Red freak who sits around sucking their dicks because I played The Witcher 3 and it made me jizz my pants or whatever, I'm not. It's not true. In fact, I've never played The Witcher 3. It's actually a blemish on my gaming resume. I'll get to it one of these days. But no, I am in fact a Skyrim baby. I played an absolute shit ton of Skyrim and loved it. Actually, for 2 years when I was in high school, I pretty much couldn't be bothered to play anything other than 2 games for 2 straight years. Those games were Mortal Kombat 9 and Skyrim. So if anything, you'd think my biases lie with Starfield. But in truth, I just don't have any biases. I don't care who made the game, I care which game is good. And to be clear, both of these games are good. One's just better. To me. But let's talk about some of what Starfield has over Cyberpunk. The first thing that comes to mind is dialogue as a gameplay mechanic. Of course, in Cyberpunk you make dialogue choices and it has some effect, but it's not good at pulling off that illusion of choice when it comes to dialogue. Now, Starfield may not really be better when it comes to that illusion of choice, but the persuasion dialogue mechanic that essentially turns a lot of talking situations into a mini-game is a lot more gratifying. Definitely one of the more impactful features in Starfield, and something I wish Cyberpunk had. There's also Starfield's character creator, which I found to be really impressive, even more so than Cyberpunk's, although not by a lot. It's just that for a game where augmenting your body is the norm, you'd think that Cyberpunk's options would have been a bit more open. Now, here's where Starfield starts wielding a double-edged sword. Starfield is bigger than Cyberpunk, and that's cool. It's a bigger, wider game that just has more in it. But Starfield lacks a real sense of authorship through most of it, and a lot of what you do and explore doesn't feel meaningful. This, in part, is probably a side effect of being so massive. In Cyberpunk, it feels like every part of Night City has something to offer and something worth doing. It feels like a city worth seeing. Cyberpunk is able to achieve more by having a more condensed area filled with quality rather than the open expanse of the universe filled with mostly nothing. Not to mention, Cyberpunk just has better writing, right? So quest lines are a fair bit more riveting, characters are more real, and even when they aren't, they remain far more compelling. It's thanks to that writing and that open world model that you have a world where the people have their own modern 2077 lingo and fashion and interesting quirks in a display of authorship and world building that isn't often displayed in any media. The high immersion of Cyberpunk just elevates everything else that the game offers. And what it offers is already great. So okay, now listen. So where Starfield has the superior approach to dialogue with a sort of pass-fail persuasion minigame that will decide how things proceed, on the combat end, Cyberpunk comes out on top simply by actually giving you a variety of playstyles and the satisfaction of getting through an encounter knowing you could have done it completely differently. This is best reinforced by the fact that stealth is a viable option in Cyberpunk, and although Starfield pretends it is, it isn't. And even with me feeling like I wish there was more variety in Cyberpunk's combat, which we may be getting with the DLC, what's currently there without the DLC is still more than what Starfield has. And listen, we can sit here all day and go over every single small detail and mechanic of both games and compare them, and trust me, I have in my head, but that's not what I want to do here because I'd be here forever. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that we got the next proper evolution on the Skyrim Fallout Western RPG formula back in 2020, and it didn't come from Bethesda. Also, it had a horrible launch that got it somewhat overlooked. But now we're here. And it wasn't until I played Starfield that I realized I already had what I wanted from it. And still, I would have gladly taken that level of quality and artistic precision again, but just from Bethesda this time, but Starfield just doesn't deliver up to that level, I think. And so there really isn't a point to this video other than me pointing out that, in my opinion, I think Starfield has come out trying to fill shoes that someone else is already wearing, and being a tad undersized for those boots anyway. But whatever, I know it doesn't sound like it, but I like Starfield. I'm planning on playing more of it eventually when I get more free time. It's just that when two things I've experienced are so similar, I can't help but think about them in tandem and in contrast. Plus, I'm pretty sure my feelings in regard to Cyberpunk are largely unknown and completely undocumented because I wasn't doing YouTube when the game came out. So I figured this could be a decent moment to share my most general impressions about it, since it was on my mind anyway. But yeah, feel free to drop your own opinion in the comments. I'm sure you're itching to tell me how stupid and wrong I am. That's fine. But if it actually turns out that you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. You probably won't, but that's okay. Thanks anyway, and until next time, I am Waifu Belector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I like both these games. Goodbye.